Coming up on 60 Minutes.
John Setka's pursuing his own personal vendetta.
Inside a web of power, fear and greed.
The mates, the cronies, the bikies.
It's easy cash.
A major investigation.
We know where you are. We can get to you.
Revealing the menace of Australia's most militant.
You've got standover going on, extortion.
And out of control union.
And nobody's doing anything about it.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
As a boss of the militant CFMEU, for 12 years, John Setka was as tough and feared a union leader as this country has ever seen. In that time, he made plenty of noise. But late on Friday afternoon, with barely a whimper, he suddenly quit. What he didn't mention in his resignation statement, though, was his decision to stand down came after we sent him a list of detailed questions he wouldn't answer. We wanted him to explain why the construction branch of the CFMEU has been infiltrated by underworld figures and outlaw motorcycle gang members. What John Setka did say was he hoped his departure would end further scrutiny of his union. Well, as you'll see tonight, it doesn't. And a warning, this story contains coarse language. It's early on a Melbourne morning and preparations are being finalised for an undercover operation, many months in the making. We've been told if you want to win a building contract in Victoria on any major CFMEU-controlled site, it helps to pay a kickback to the union. We want to see if there's any truth to the claim. So we've set up a meeting between an undercover operative and a self-styled union fixer to see what it takes to secure an enterprise bargaining agreement on workers' pay and conditions, a crucial step if you want access to a CFMEU-run construction site. We've recreated the scene, but the audio is real.
I will take this to them. They're going to ask me two questions.
Sure.
One, why am I helping you? Okay. And two, they want to eat.
What we discover is not only shocking, but evidence of blatant corruption.
There's a fee to get the EBA.
Yep.
I think the upfront fee is cash. But all you got to do, I told you, pay the boys, make sure they're okay, and that's it. That's business. And everybody eats.
There's undoubtedly plenty of good in what the CFMEU's construction wing has done for workers across the country.
20% fucking pay rise? There's not enough Ford Rangers in the fucking country.
But what we'll show you tonight is the union's dark underbelly.
What message was that sending?
You speak out against us. We know where you are. We can get to you.
The infiltration by organised crime and bikie gangs.
It's about the mates, the cronies, the bikies.
Yeah, look after your mates, look after yourself.
From violent threats and standover tactics.
I haven't done nothing. I'll fucking take your soul and I'll rip your fucking head off.
To bikie figures working as union-endorsed delegates and fixers.
Well, you're not looking at a steering committee at a kindergarten, eh?
A once proud union that defends the rights of workers on the take and in bed with criminals.
It's rotten to the core. You've got standover going on, extortion going on, contracts being awarded that shouldn't be awarded, honest people being pushed out of the industry. It's a terrible state of affairs. And nobody's doing anything about it.
To understand how things have gotten so bad, you need to start with John Setka, who was until Friday Australia's most militant union leader. Setka relished his role as a hard man and a champion of workers' rights. And his uncompromising style delivered hefty pay rises and better conditions for his 35,000 members.
I'm not going to let them sweep this under the carpet.
But over his 12 years at the helm, the CFMEU became the Setka Circus.
All you're good at is calling the coppers and acting like a fucking dog. That's all you're good at. The most reasonable people around reckon you're a fucking dog.
His was a reign of threatening and self-serving behaviour that many believed crossed the line.
I think his public persona pretty much says everything. He's, big and loud and brash and very capable of holding the attention of many and very scary to many as well.
Mark Ney is well versed in the world of construction and its links to organised crime. In 2014, the former Federal Police Assistant Commissioner was the most senior investigator at the Hayden Royal Commission, which was called by the then Abbott government to investigate corruption in unions. He's never spoken publicly about his work until now.
What did you find as Royal Commission Investigations Director in terms of the CFMEU in Victoria, New South Wales and elsewhere, and organised crime?
There were quite a few things that were found in regards to inappropriate behaviour, extortion and standing over both members within the CFMEU, but also businesses, both small and large. Unfortunately, the Royal Commission was a moment in time. Life has continued on for the CFMEU and the Building and Construction Union, and many of the things have returned to normal, if not got worse.
Got worse?
Got worse.
What's going on in the CFMEU is so ugly that other unionists have had enough.
You're sticking your head up on national television to call out bad behaviour. Do you fear blowback?
Well, I've had blowback in recent years from them anyway, so I'm expecting more of the same.
Leo Skudoumbis is boss of the CFMEU's manufacturing division. He's one of many in the labour movement who's deeply concerned about the union Setka's built, but one of the few prepared to speak publicly about it.
You used to be mates with Setka.
That's right. Prior to about 2018, I think the friendship was a very good one. I always found John friendly, generous, and I enjoyed our friendship.
What changed with John?
It's hard to say why things changed, but he increasingly became aggressive, abusive, and I think wanted to use our personal friendship against my union, which I was never going to do.
He wanted effectively to take over your union to increase his power.
Well, he definitely wanted to start that process. That's how I saw it. And after attempts to fend him off, I just had to tell him enough's enough.
We interviewed Leo just days before Setka's bombshell resignation, when he wanted to tell us about a campaign of bullying and intimidation of his members by elements of the CFMEU's construction wing. Leo says it's become so bad, the manufacturing division has moved to break away from the broader union entirely.
Our members deserve better. They don't deserve to be linked to such an organisation, and we want to be able to give them a say in the future of their union. There are many examples in recent years where manufacturing division members have been attacked, intimidated, harassed and bullied simply because they happen to hold a manufacturing division union ticket. This is just crazy.
You're saying they're being bullied, stood over, intimidated by
construction officials and unelected delegates simply because they hold a manufacturing division ticket, and they've been sat in sheds until they swap over to the construction union. This is happening to this day.
Why are they doing this?
We'd argue they're doing it because John Setka is pursuing his own personal vendetta against our union, our officials and our leadership.
A sign of just how toxic things had become came 2 months ago on a chilly Melbourne evening. A mysterious visitor arrived at Leo's family home and left a calling card of sorts in the driveway before slipping into the night. The next morning, Leo found it.
I see down the driveway some sort of parcel or package or object. As I got closer, I saw that it was a suitcase type object with some words written on the top.
What were those words?
The words were Leo the dog.
Leo the dog.
Yeah.
What message was that sending?
Well, I think the message is quite clear, and that was, you speak out against us, we know where you are, and we can get to you.
We know where you live.
Yep.
Leo knows the threat came directly from the CFMEU because the person who left the suitcase was caught in the act by CCTV.
So what are we seeing here, Leo?
This is the family driveway and the camera footage.
It's a fleeting moment you can see for yourself in this extraordinary clip.
And there he is.
That's him right there.
Yep.
And there goes the bag.
There goes the bag in the middle of the driveway, and he scurries off.
If you think the figure is recognisable, you'd be right.
What does that footage show?
At approximately 8:10 p.m. on Tuesday the 21st of May, John Setka came into the driveway with a suitcase and placed it in the driveway. So it was John that did it.
John Setka himself.
John Setka himself, the leader of the largest construction branch in the country.
What does it say that John Setka himself is prepared to personally carry out threats such as this?
I think what it says is that John Setka and his union are just out of control. If they think that they can just rock up to another official's house after dark and do that sort of thing, I just think it shows that they're just out of control.
While it's easy to believe John Setka's resignation will clean up the union's dirty business, as you'll see, the CFMEU's problems go much deeper than just one man.
I can stop anyone doing anything, mate. And I say that respectfully. I don't want to be a smarty. We can cause you grief. I know you've got enough grief in your life already.
Former CFMEU construction boss John Setka wasn't afraid to take on anyone he saw as an enemy. But he also had powerful friends in his corner. And there was one person he was particularly close to, his good mate, Mick Gatto.
What sort of reputation does Mick Gatto have?
A hard man, solid man. He's a big person physically. When he speaks, people listen.
Former Detective Inspector Ken Ashworth has led investigations into organised crime for state and federal police.
I describe him as a colourful identity in Melbourne circles, but for many years and many decades his image was that associated with organised crime, criminals, the Italian Mafia in this state. But most of those people he did associate with are murdered, no longer with us.
Gatto and Setka's close bond was evident in leaked texts between the two men in 2019.
Thanks, John, for publicly defending our friendship. I do love you. Without you, the union is gone. Remember, today's news, tomorrow's toilet paper. Best wishes, your friend, MG.
A day later, Setka texted Gatto.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate the support, and I'll never forget it. Fuck these prim and proper people who've never done it hard in their whole lives and should probably look up in the dictionary what mateship means.
Despite never being convicted of a serious crime, Gatto's underworld ties are legendary. Although in recent years, he's presented himself as a much-mellowed businessman and grandfather, and an expert in industrial arbitration and mediation.
He says, I'm just a clean businessman who handles building blues between companies and their union. Nothing wrong with that. Is he right?
I think it's a little bit more than that. I mean, Mick's reputation, for him entering a room, would put a shiver up the spine of anybody who knew of his reputation. So, he brought fear into the room.
Former Assistant Commissioner of the Australian Federal Police, Mark Ney, investigated underworld links in his work for the Hayden Royal Commission.
Did Mick Gatto come up on the Union Royal Commission's radar?
He did, from time to time, and, I don't think it's any secret that Mick's seen as a fixer in industrial disputes, and he certainly came onto the radar.
Engaging a negotiator with a reputation as formidable as that of Mick Gatto, it's easy to see how construction industry disagreements can be quickly resolved. It's rare to get a behind-the-scenes glimpse of a building industry dispute, but we've obtained audio of a conversation between Mick Gatto and a developer. It's revealing listening. Gatto was acting for a builder who claimed he was owed money.
We just want to sit down, just have a chat and find a common denominator. If you're interested,
well,
if you're not interested, we'll go away and just whatever happens, happens.
Gatto's request for a meeting came with a warning.
I can stop anyone doing anything, mate. And I say that respectfully. I don't want to be a smarty. We can cause you grief. I know you've got enough grief in your life already.
Mick Gatto tells a developer architect, we can cause you grief. We can stop anyone doing anything. What do you take those words to mean?
That'd be a veiled threat that they can interrupt their business.
Gatto says, when you ask him, I didn't mean anything nefarious.
No, of course he'd say that. He's not going to admit to it, but that's the inference that's inferred.
We can cause you grief. It's pretty clear.
Absolutely.
Gatto has declined an on-camera interview, but when I called him last year to ask about his dealings with the developer and the union, he told me about his mates in the CFMEU.
I've got friends there, I have, and they support me if things are done the right way. Otherwise, they do things their way. If you do want to run a story, whatever you do, whatever you like, but print the truth. Print the truth, mate. I've got no issue with you. You don't print the truth, I've got a problem with it. If I ever see you, I'll deal with you. You know?
That doesn't sound very nice, Mick.
Well, I mean, I'll probably spit at you or something,
Also looming large in Victoria's construction industry is another underworld identity. The man in the orange hard hat was once Gatto's young lieutenant. His name is Faru Orman. Orman was convicted of a gangland murder in 2009. But was freed from jail when his conviction was quashed in 2019, after it was discovered his barrister, Nicola Gobbo, was a police informer. Following his release, he became involved with 9 construction companies, several of which secured prized enterprise bargaining agreements from the CFMEU. In a conversation with an undercover operative, a well-connected insider revealed his frustration at Orman's rapid rise in the construction industry.
Everyone's coming in. The union's letting them come back in through the back door. Get out of jail. Come over with us. No fucking idea about the industry.
Is it surprising to you that Faru Orman, having spent a number of years in jail, no known construction industry background, can set up and prosper so quickly in the construction industry?
It's not surprising because the construction industry is riddled with organised crime identities. It's well known. And being connected with them, he's in straight away.
There is another lucrative area of the construction industry that's ripe for the picking, if the union has your back: Indigenous labour hire. Governments require projects they finance to employ a certain proportion of Indigenous workers, and there are hire companies that specialise in placing them. It's a well-meaning scheme funded by the taxpayer, as Mark Ney explains.
It's about getting young Indigenous people into the workforce and giving them some skills, but it also comes with subsidies. So, like any subsidised activity, there's a guaranteed income stream for the business to engage Aboriginal people in the workplace.
And like any government-funded activity, there's money to be made. As part of his empire, Mick Gatto has an interest in an Indigenous employment labour hire company. Faru Orman does too. Documents we've obtained show his company ZK Civil Infrastructure was granted a valuable Indigenous labour hire agreement by the CFMEU.
Why do people associated with the underworld, Mick Gatto's close associate, Faru Orman, start Indigenous construction businesses?
I could only guess as to why they've gone down that path. One is it could be incredibly altruistic in terms of taking on what is a really good and important scheme, or at the other end, it's because it's easy cash.
Easy cash.
Yeah.
You'd have to be cynical, though, wouldn't you? Mick Gatto, Australian-Italian figure linked to the underworld. Faru Orman, of Turkish heritage, linked to the underworld. Neither of them have anything to do with the Indigenous community of note, both trying to make money through Indigenous construction, labour hire and work.
Well, I'd love to think that it's altruistic, but, based on your proposition and the allegations that exist in regards to those individuals, you'd have to think that they're taking advantage of the system.
In Faru Orman's case, his commitment to the Indigenous cause was fleeting. Curiously, only a day after he secured his company the prized union agreement, he transferred his stake in it.
Why should anyone care that colourful underworld-linked characters are getting significant backup from the union, getting pushed on to work, getting supported across Australia?
Well, I have no problem with people getting a job. What I do have concerns about is that they're getting the jobs for the wrong reasons, because they are part of the gang. They're part of the crew, which is highly problematic because it excludes a whole bunch of other businesses out there, but for the fact that they don't have somebody who has got serious connections running it.
Coming up, builders, bikies and bad deals.
It's totally out of control, and it's all paid for by you and me.
The Victorian Labor government is proud of what it calls the Big Build, the name it's given to an ambitious raft of road and rail projects across the state. What it won't be happy about is this grainy vision that shows a shooting outside a Rebels bikie clubhouse in Melbourne's west last year. An outbreak of bikie bloodshed with a surprising connection to Victoria's Big Build and the CFMEU. The identity of the bikie who was shot was only uncovered after he arrived at hospital. He stood by the Underworld Code of Silence and refused to talk to police. But when the anti-bikie task force checked the car used to ferry the bleeding bikie to medical care, they discovered it in fact belonged to a Victorian government mega project. The bikie was Joel Litt, a CFMEU health and safety representative. Working on a state government rail project, he was found by police to have used his work car for outlaw bikie gang business. A construction industry insider with significant knowledge of union workings told us more.
He was the union rep on 200k plus and a car. No one gives a fuck because it's all paid for by the government at the end of the day. When he started bluing with bikies on site, the contractor discovered he was a bikie who'd been locked up in Queensland. The cops only clued on when Leavitt was shot and used his work car to get to hospital. They impounded the car and traced where it had been after hours. It's totally out of control, and it's all paid for by you and me.
If it was just one outlaw bikie on a state government-run project, you might wave it off. But what we found is that bikies and their associates are thriving in Australia's construction industry, thanks to the CFMEU.
I think they're given those jobs because of who they are, that they have a fear and a reputation associated with them, and that people won't mess with them. And if they say something, it will be done.
You're saying they're getting the job as a union delegate because they're linked to the bikies?
Yes, because they can get things done. They have the influence.
Ken Ashworth, the former head of the Piranha Task Force on Organised Crime, says ultimately it's a cost we all bear.
Why should the public care about all this?
Because it's a cancer that spreads. And I've seen it spread in my time, where there's no governing body, they're not being looked at, they flourish in the dark and just keep spreading and spreading. And we all pay for it. The costs of building and construction, the taxpayer, the government jobs, it is all paid for by the taxpayer.
Being a union delegate is a privileged and powerful position because you can earn north of $200,000 a year to carry out the union's wishes. and influence which subcontractor wins work. This is CFMEU delegate Tyrone Bell with his union mates on his way to a CFMEU meeting. And this is Bell with his bikie brothers. Bell has no serious convictions, and there's no suggestion he's a criminal. But for years he was the president of the Mongols outlaw bikie gang's East Side chapter. When we spoke to him this week though, he claimed he'd switched his allegiance from the Mongols to the Union. He's also involved in a building company called Solid Seal, owned by his wife, which the CFMEU pushes onto building sites in Victoria.
To have the union backing his personal building company, why would that be valuable to someone like a Tyrone Bell?
Well, take, for example, the big build that goes on here in Victoria. They're going to do some building or construction somewhere. Contract will go out. The usual people will apply. There'll be pressure from within that other companies won't get a look in. You've got to be with the CFMEU, got to be signed up with the EBA. These are our preferred companies and contractors, so they get pushed up and they'll get the job.
So if Tyrone Bell's company is getting pushed by the CFMEU, he stands to do pretty well.
Absolutely.
Why can't the big builders say, I don't want to use that company?
For fear of repercussions.
Tyrone Bell, seen here on the left, also helps sort out building issues for at least one company. And he appears to have aligned himself with feared Hells Angels standover man Sam Ercan, known in the underworld as Sammy the Turk. Ercan is a building industry fixer, and he's been promoted by some in the CFMEU to help out companies with union or bikie problems.
Is it rare to actually see a union-favoured building industry fixer having a powwow with a union delegate / bikie?
It's rare that it's caught on tape, but it's not uncommon in this state.
What picture does it paint?
Well, you're not looking at a steering committee at a kindergarten, are you? It doesn't paint a very good picture of the industry at all.
Sammy the Turk has been forced to put his building industry mediation business on hold. A few weeks ago, he was jailed for threatening to kneecap an accountant unless he handed over $500,000. But before landing behind bars, he was telling people he was the best construction industry fixer going around, able to sort out union disputes and make everyone lots of money. Prior to his jailing, we captured covert surveillance vision of Sammy the Turk with a familiar figure, gangland associate and CFMEU-backed construction business owner Faru Orman. We learned more from a construction industry insider who knows about Ercan and his union connections.
One of the CFMEU boys said Sammy the Turk is taking over from Gatto. You use him to sort out issues with bikies of the union. Sammy reckons he's on a retainer with a caulking company and a big tiling firm who had a blue with the union that he sorted out. You pay him regularly and he fixes any dramas.
Our investigation found a number of other senior bikie gang-linked figures among the ranks of union delegates at the CFMEU. Among them, convicted criminal and, until recently, Hells Angels president Luke Maloney. Kickboxer Kane Montebello, the president of the Dark Side chapter of the Hells Angels. And former high-ranking bandito Johnny Two Guns Walker, who recently got out of prison for manslaughter.
We've uncovered a lot of indicators of serious bikies in the construction sector. Where are the state police? Where are the federal police?
Policing more generally don't get involved in these matters unless it's a straight up and down extortion or there is a straight up and down assault on someone. The police generally don't have the time or the workforce capacity to be able to deal with these issues.
For former Assistant Commissioner Mark Ney, the infiltration of such shady characters in the union is a worrying and intractable problem.
You say the cops aren't doing enough in this space, the Fair Work Commission is failing. Who then picks up the issue?
Well, there is no one at the moment. It's in a vacant space. There's a gap there.
What happens if the bikies, the underworld figures in the construction sector aren't dealt with?
Business continues. It becomes more of an issue. Cost of building in construction within our country gets more and more expensive to the point where businesses start going to the wall and things don't get built.
And what happens to organised crime?
Up to the point where they make it crash, they line their pockets.
Coming up, the evidence of dirty deals and kickbacks that taints the CFMEU.
I will take this to them. They're going to ask me two questions.
Sure.
One, why am I helping you? Okay. And two, they want to eat.
We've shown you how the construction wing of the CFMEU in Victoria has embraced a host of shady characters. Now we can give you an idea of how things work behind the scenes. We've arranged a meeting between an undercover operative and a self-styled CFMEU facilitator to inquire about obtaining a valuable enterprise bargaining agreement to work on one of the Victorian government's big build sites.
So, Jeffrey, you're about to hear audio of a building industry fixer claiming he can provide some pretty special access to the CFMEU.
Joining me to listen to the recording we obtained is Top Silk Jeffrey Watson SC, Director of the Centre of Public Integrity. The meeting gets underway with words of reassurance.
No problem. I have a 30-year relationship with the union, a very big relationship with them. And you would know now that the biggest union is CFMEU.
You're hearing the voice of Harry Corris, a life coach and colourful former security company boss with a conviction for tax evasion.
What you put out is what you get. What you want, how you want to be treated, how you want to live your life is how you treat others.
When we called him on Friday, Corris insisted he had no connection to the construction industry, the CFMEU, or any scheme to pay kickbacks in return for union help. This audio, though, appears to tell a different story.
They're very clever in how they do business, and they don't give out EBAs that easy. And the reason why is because they control the market. The big build is theirs. You can't get in if you don't know someone. Not going to happen.
The negotiation lasts less than 20 minutes and ends with a suggestion that an EBA can be sorted for a cost.
So I'll tell you, so the bosses are all my friends. We all grew up together. I will take this to them. They're going to ask me two questions. One, why am I helping you? Okay. And two, they want to eat. Okay. Because what they have to do, they have to look at the big bill, they look at it and say, all right, this is yours. But to put you there, they have to move someone. So there's a fee to get the EBA.
Yep.
I think the upfront fee is cash, but all you've got to do, I told you, pay the boys, make sure they're okay, and that's it. That's business. And everybody eats.
That's business, everybody eats.
It seems to be the kind of language derived from television or movies. It's gangster talk.
Gangster talk.
Gangster talk.
How clear is the fact that there is a corrupt deal being put on the table here?
It's plain as day. If you're paying secret commissions to get this kind of work, it's actually the unions cutting out the members and they're selling their real reason for existence for money.
What we've shown tonight is ugly enough, but the vicious politics of union business can have some unintended consequences, as Tammy Palmer knows only too well.
He was a beautiful boy, full of life, a great mate, very family orientated, loved sport, and he always wanted to make his mum and dad proud, that kind of kid.
And you were proud?
Very, without a doubt.
Tammy's son, Ben Nash, was a young Indigenous man with a bright future. He'd battled mental health issues throughout his life, but by the age of 18, was immersed in his two great loves, footy and construction. Ben's first job was with Indigenous labour hire firm Marda Dandy, and for the enthusiastic young worker, it was a perfect fit.
What did he tell you about the company?
He just loved it. He loved the physical labour of civil construction. He loved driving machinery. And he loved working with his mates.
But the dream new job wasn't to last long. By late 2023, Marta Dandy had fallen foul of the CFMEU and had aligned with rival union, the AWU. Frozen out of work sites, the company was forced to close. A video reveals the sort of hostility faced by Marta Dandy's leadership from some elements within the CFMEU on a big build site.
I'll fucking take your soul and I'll rip your fucking head off. You're a fucking rat. You want to do AW and get an AW agreement? That's all right. You'll not come home with our mobs.
Ben would become ensnared in vicious union politics he had nothing to do with. 2 months after Marta Dandy was wound up, he got a new job. But on his induction day, he unwittingly wore a shirt with the logo of his old employer. He told his mum the site's CFMEU rep was outraged.
According to Ben, he went through the induction at the start of the day, and once that was all done, he was pulled aside and told that nobody that worked for Marta would ever be welcome on site again. He was told to F off. They locked him in a shed for 3 or 4 hours, just, a young boy with, mental health issues throughout his life. And, he had got no help. He didn't know whether to stay or go. He chose to stay, thinking he was doing the right thing. He didn't know what else to do. And then he told me that an older chap had walked in and said, "What are you still doing here?" And Ben was told to F off site. He wasn't welcome.
When Ben finally came home, he wasn't himself.
He was angry. He was upset. We had a quick chat and he said, "Mum, I just need to sleep. I just need to sleep. I just need this to stop. I just need to sleep."
Ben went to his room where he took a mixture of prescription drugs, leading to an overdose that Tammy believes was accidental.
I checked up on him at about midnight to make sure he was okay and he was fine. And then he was dead at 8:30 the next morning. He fell asleep and didn't wake up.
Ben died in January this year, a day before his 19th birthday. Devastated by the loss of her son, Tammy Palmer is calling for change.
Who do you blame for his death?
CFMEU.
Why?
Because where was the duty of care for my son? Why was he locked in a shed for so long?
If you could sit eye to eye with the union leadership, the CFMEU leadership, what would you tell them?
Stop the bullying, the standover tactics, the bullshit. I just don't understand how my son can go to work one day and be dead the next. From treatment on a CFMEU site, it's got to stop. It's got to stop. Nobody should be treated like that.
But now that leader John Setka has gone, is there really any chance of things getting better? Coming up, a changing of the guard at the CFMEU.
Will the problems, the culture that he's implemented leave with him?
I suspect it will be an evolution as opposed to a revolution.
The CFMEU prides itself on looking after its members. And last month, thousands gathered at Melbourne's Festival Hall to endorse a deal that will see a whopping increase in wages over the next 4 years.
All those in favour?
Inside, former rebel bikie and long-time delegate Stu Corcoran could barely contain his glee.
20% fucking pay rise? There's not enough Ford Rangers in the fucking country. First year apprentices are going to get Raptors. God bless the CFMEU. God fucking bless them.
It's a parting achievement for union boss John Setka. After 12 years at the top, his controversial reign is now over.
What impact has John Setka had on the CFMEU?
Well, undoubtedly, John Setka is very proud and quite a hard man in terms of running the union as well. So that bit has not been lost from the CFMEU. The only thing I question is the direction that he's taken it for whatever purposes, that it's not necessarily all about the people that they protect and look after in the union, but it's about who can get what out of the union. So unfortunately, the focus is not necessarily all about those that are being represented.
It's about the mates, the cronies, the bikies.
Yeah, look after your mates, look after yourself.
But former Federal Police Assistant Commissioner Mark Ney says the question now is whether Setka's departure will lead to substantive change in the CFMEU.
He has developed a pretty strong culture within his organisation, and they have followed him all this time. And I suspect that a lot of the traits that he has brought to the CFMEU will probably continue, maybe not with as much gusto, but it will be an evolution for that organisation as opposed to a revolution.
No one's going to ask you to do this.
The man positioning to replace John Setka at the helm of the CFMEU's construction wing is his deputy, Derek Christopher.
I'll never ever be ashamed putting more money in the pockets of building workers, ever, from any fucking employer. They're making fucking millions. We want a bit. That's all it is. Fuck that.
In a statement, the CFMEU told us it has zero tolerance for criminality. And if there is credible evidence of delegates or officials committing crimes, they will be reported. But Derek Christopher himself is tainted by allegations of corruption. Police raided Christopher's house in 2019 over suspicions he'd received kickbacks to renovate his home. The investigation has produced no charges, but police confirmed this week it is still ongoing. Tonight we can reveal new evidence that Christopher received an estimated $200,000 in benefits from major construction companies who gave the union boss free labour and free supplies in return for CFMEU favours.
Is there ever any excuse for a union leader taking a kickback or a freebie from a boss, a big company?
From where I come from, Nick, no way.
We understand Derek Christopher has had such inducements from Tier 1 big companies. I'm not asking you to say whether you know about that. I'm not saying you do. But if Derek Christopher has taken freebies, kickbacks from bosses, big bosses, Tier 1 companies, would that be acceptable?
If that's proven, if that's more than an allegation, this is the first time I'm hearing it, how could someone in a position of leadership stay in that position? No way.
For Leo Skudoumbis, boss of the CFMEU's manufacturing division, it's more evidence of just how rotten the leadership of the construction wing has become. That's why he's standing up and speaking out in the hope of a major clean-up.
Leadership isn't about turning a blind eye. It's about confronting bad behaviour where you see it in your trade union and making sure you stamp it out.
Mr Greenfield, why are you here at the police station today?
And if it looks bad in Victoria, the construction wing of the CFMEU in New South Wales is also in strife. Its firebrand boss, Darren Greenfield, is currently facing court over bribery allegations.
I won't comment on those charges other than to say that the charges are serious and people in positions of leadership, whether they're in the trade union movement or even in the corporate world, when those situations arise, should not continue to hold and exercise power.
The union is in crisis, and even with John Setka gone, it remains deeply compromised. The bribe payers, bikies and underworld figures aren't going anywhere fast. And the risk is, without action from governments and the labour movement, their hold in the construction sector will only get stronger.
It seems very much like the trade union movement is effectively powerless to deal with what you describe as clear misbehaviour.
Unions are constituted by union rules. All that's required is the political will from the other leadership and members in a trade union to give effect to those rules. We don't need outside bodies to police us. We're quite capable of doing it ourselves, but there has to be the required political will. And just at the moment, it appears that that might be lacking at that union.
Hello, I'm Nick McKenzie. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.